What is going on, Swoopers? Welcome back to another episode of Sideline with Dr. Ethan Ellul, the Osteopath. We're going to be talking about Braden Maynard's ruptured plantar fasciitis injury. When we said, look, let's do a video on this, he was going to be out for 6 weeks. And now he's out for 1 to 2 weeks. Craig McRae came out in his press and said he could return next week. But you got to remember that after the Melbourne game, we have a bye leading into St Kilda at I was going to say the Telstra Dome at Marvel Stadium. So who knows if they're going to want to play him on that concrete turf. But Eth, how you going, mate?
Good. How are
Beautiful. Yeah, good. My business all booming.
Yep, going well.
All right. Let's get straight into it. Braden Maynard, so he's been battling this plantar fasciitis injury all year, and that's why he was left out of that Fremantle game. So they gave him a week there. Against the Roos, he lasted maybe, I think it was 11 minutes.
Yeah.
Ruptured it, popped.
Yeah.
What can you tell us?
Yeah, so obviously, if you're hearing a pop, it's usually never good. And in this particular case, like you can see in the footage, you can clearly see him sort of stepping back.
Yep.
You see the ankle sort of fully dorsiflex or go that way, basically. And then the big toes going back as well.
Yeah.
And that puts the plantar fascia on like maximum tension.
Yep.
And that's usually when you're going to see that pop.
Yep.
The other thing that could pop is the Achilles, which you would definitely know about as well. Which, touch wood, that didn't happen because that's like a massive injury. That's
like a 12-monther, right?
Yeah,
I remember Anthony Rocket did it 1 year. I think it actually might have been at Marvel back when it was Telstra Dome against the Doggies from memory. But he said that it sounded like a gunshot.
Yeah. Much more. The pop would be much more intense, and looks like a lot of players. You see with Maynard, he steps off it, and then like I think it's a ball up or something, and then he's sort of like checking it out. He's looking down at it. But in the case of an Achilles, usually it's like you're being kicked in the back of the leg, and you sort of just like your feet drop from under you. So they're nasty.
Well, thankfully it wasn't that.
Yeah, thankfully it wasn't that. And scans confirmed it was a complete rupture of the plantar fascia. And like given his history with plantar fasciitis, an itis suggests inflammation, but it's not actually an inflammatory condition. It's actually like a degenerative condition. So as he's been sort of battling it throughout the season, maybe last year's, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure if it was.
Not sure.
But it would have been a long sort of.
Yeah. So like as he's been battling that, it would have been degenerating over time. Particularly if he'd got, we don't know because the club doesn't,
release any of that sort of
disclose
stuff.
everything, but he might have got a few cortisone injections into that, which actually predisposes a rupture because cortisone
takes the pain away.
It takes the pain away pretty much instantly, but it delays healing and slows healing, so it's going to accelerate like a degenerative sort of process. So if he had a couple of cortisones, that would have predispose this to happening as well.
Interesting. So look, tell us so when you hear rupture, it sounds really bad, and of course a rupture is just bad in general. But how does he go from? I know this was pre-scan. They said 2 to 6 weeks, but how do you go from a rupture and is exactly what he has to being like, okay, we're going to make him sit out this week, but there's a chance that he can. He wasn't at training today, but there's a chance he can play next week.
Yeah. So obviously it depends on the structure. So like an ACL rupture is very different because that's its role is stability in the knee, whereas the plantar fascia, its role is to act like a spring basically, and it makes you more efficient when you're running and whatnot. So it doesn't have a key role in like stability or stabilizing you. So without it, you can still function. You might not function as good. And I suspect we would see his explosiveness sort of diminish a little bit because, you don't have that sort of spring to sort of
bounce off.
To bounce off and to recoil the energy that you put into it.
Right.
So we might see him a little less explosive, but it's not a structure that you totally rely on and can't play, without. So, it's an interesting one, that's for sure.
So if how you're saying, he doesn't have that sort of spring. So if you've got a rupture in one of your in your plantar on one foot, but your other foot is still good, does that uneven the balance long term?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, with the ruptured plantar fascia, you might see other structures or tissues start to. Oh,
Weather outside.
yeah. They've been playing up actually. Yeah, you might see other tissues start to sort of pick up the slack there. So you might see, the Achilles start to niggle a bit, or things further up the chain. So yeah, it's not as simple as oh great, it's ruptured. It's only a 2-week thing, because it's still going to affect the way you're running and other things as well. But as I just said, it's not a structure you completely rely on.
Yep.
And you can still play without it.
And we've also seen, just in Collingwood, just an epidemic. So we talked way before opening round about Nick Dacos's plantar fasciitis. Didn't rupture it, but it was hindering him.
Yeah.
Charlie West, for these last few weeks, has had it as well. This is just, it's probably something that everyone usually just plays through or manages.
Yeah.
But now it's just out in the open, because then you look at Tom Mitchell last year, I mean, we were just talking about it off camera, where he actually was so bad that he went in for surgery to slice it, right?
Yes. So they'll only do that once it gets, pretty significant.
Insane.
Yeah. And basically the idea is, if your plantar fascia is on a lot of tension and it's super tight and painful, they wouldn't have like removed it or completely like cut it.
Yeah.
But if you cut like the edges of it, you say you cut it like that a little bit, you create a bit of length in the other fibers of it.
Yeah, right.
So that's why as well there's sort of those stories about I think a few players, but Robert Harvey's sort of the most well-known one. Yeah, the jump off the coffee table to try and like rupture your plantar fascia. And that's achieving the same thing. Like if you tear a couple of those fibers, then you create a bit more length there, and it takes some pressure off it. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. That's for sure.
No. Yeah, far out. Like, yeah, don't go jumping off a coffee table.
Yeah.
So I'm nowhere near athlete level, right?
Yeah.
But you and everyone else sort of knows that when I went to Europe last year, and I was sort of vlogging all the way through. I had a bit of plantar fasciitis. I had to get new shoes and stuff, because it was really, we were discussing it back then as well. I remember I landed in London, and then the next day, so after doing like 30,000 steps or whatever it was, the next day I started walking, and my foot hurt so much, even with the soft soles and the shoes I was wearing, that I had to get an Uber back to my hostel. And the only thing that I could think of that would give me release, and I think I told you this, would I was just like, I need to slice this, because it was so tight and swollen that I could not move like my foot. And to then even think about running 14 kilometers. I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk to get a coffee. And I was in bed. Like, I couldn't get out of my hospital. It was just that bad, that I can see why, rupturing it, or, jumping off a tape, because it was in that amount of pain. The only thing I could think of was, I need to get this surgically sliced out. Just to relieve that pressure.
Yeah. And like, I've had plenty of patients describe it the same way. They say, I just want to cut it open or cut it out. And it does give you that sensation, I suppose, because of how painful and how tight it gets. And that's pretty much what they do with the surgery. They don't completely cut it, but they cut the edges of it and try and give you more length through there. In the case of Maynard, though, it's a complete rupture. So the whole thing is ruptured, which, it's an interesting one, and there's not a whole bunch of evidence on it, because it is quite rare to fully rupture it. Although there's a few instances in the AFL. I'd like to know the how common it is in footy, because
it's not something that everyone talks about.
No,
but surely most people are going through it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people with heel pain playing footy.
Yeah.
I mean, footy boots as well, they're super tight. they're actually probably getting tighter and narrower, and more, sleek in design. But whether or not that's good for the foot, I'm not sure.
Whatever.
Also, a lot of players, and even when I used to play like soccer and footy, I used to like having the boots like gloves, like super tight. But you got to think, if your boot or your shoe's super tight, then your foot's super tight as well. Like it can't.
Ballerina foot almost.
Yeah. So whether that's got something to do with it, I'm not sure, but it does seem to be becoming more prevalent these days.
Yeah. And I guess the biggest question is, I guess the rupture, he came out and said, or there was a lot of people coming and saying, oh, rupture's the best thing for him.
Yeah.
But if it's a complete rupture and he's ready to play next week, it's a bit weird.
It is weird. And like I haven't treated any patient who's had a complete rupture of it, and I dug into the research, and there's not much around it. There's actually conflicting opinions on it between like surgeons and whatnot as well, because it's rare. There isn't like a gold standard approach.
Right.
I think it's probably because if a couple fibers are torn, it's going to be quite painful for you. Whereas if the whole thing's torn, then all those sore and damaged fibers are no longer in contact, and you probably, the nerves there probably get damaged in that instance as well, and you probably don't feel as much pain as if just a couple fibers were torn, and you're still stuck with remaining painful fibers. I think that's why that's the case. It's sort of like same thing can happen with a really bad ankle sprain. At a certain point, if you sever the nerve there, it's not that painful because you've actually, ruptured the nerve there. Obviously an ankle is different though, because then you've got that instability. Whereas you don't have that with the plantar fascia. So yeah, it's an interesting one, and it's because of the type of structure that it is. It literally connects from your heel to your big toes. So it's not like it's connecting, it is connecting bones together, but it's not like it's holding a joint together or anything like that.
100%.
It's there for extra explosiveness and for energy efficiency.
He returned, and you talked about explosiveness a little bit earlier. So let's just say he returns after the bye, comes back for the St Kilda game. Losing that explosiveness, what else can he sort of work on to sort of get that? Can he ever get that back?
That's a great question.
Fully heal?
Great question. And this is where, the controversy lies, because personally, I would say that a partial rupture, you're more likely to get your explosiveness back in the case of a partial rupture, where, those fibers might eventually find their way back and heal to their, full strength, we'll call it. Whereas obviously complete rupture, it's going to be much harder for all those fibers to perfectly mend and heal back together. So whether he'll be 100%, back to his full power and explosiveness, I'm not too sure, but I would say that it's probably going to be hard to get back to exactly where you were prior to a plantar fascia rupture.
But it doesn't require surgery, right? A complete rupture.
You can have surgery on it. If, like, let's say he's back, I suspect it's going to be after the bye. Let's say he's back after the bye and he's playing and he's getting persistent pain and whatnot, then they might consider surgery to, like, reattach the fibers. That's a different surgery and a different approach. But a conservative management, so basically just, resting it and then rehab, is the gold standard for a rupture.
And it was kind of like what we were talking about with Degoe a couple weeks ago, just about his injuries and how, resting is the way to go. But with the sort of sport that they play, you're always on your feet, no matter what you do.
100%.
He was in a moon boot going into the scans, obviously, because he just bloody ruptured it. It's just I don't know, it's just blowing my mind that you can completely rupture something, and I know it's not like you said, like an ACL, but and it's a foot. It's so important.
Yeah,
It's so important to just your whole body. It's not like you ruptured a finger or
for sure.
something. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand. I just can't wrap my head around why they're, one, not forcing him to play, but they're already saying he could play next week if
So
we wanted him
soon.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not saying here's 6. I know it's a 2-week injury, but here's 6 weeks
Mm.
to just stay off your feet.
Yeah.
You don't need to use your feet, because I just don't understand how, if he comes back at St Kilda, and you know the Marvel turf is just underneath, on top of concrete pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
How they can say, yep, go out and have another run.
Yeah, it is bizarre to me, and I'm not too experienced, you know, with dealing with complete plantar fascia ruptures. I see plantar fasciitis all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is bizarre to me, and that's why I was trying to dig into the research, because the common consensus around the AFL is, oh, good, it's been ruptured, you're going to return to play quicker.
Yeah.
Which sounds so counterintuitive. And to be honest, all the research I've looked into, they use like a bracing protocol for a minimum of like 3 weeks usually.
Yeah.
So to say he's playing in 2 weeks, it's just, yeah, it's bizarre to me. But you know, they've got the best sports docs and everything, so I'm not gonna
exactly right.
contradict
All
what
we
they're
can
saying.
do is all we can do is look from the outside looking in.
That's
and
right.
based on previous research and stuff like
Exactly right. So yeah, it is bizarre to hear rupture and 2 weeks in the same conversation.
Yeah.
But that's what they think, and hopefully that's the case, and he's playing back as soon
Yeah,
as
well,
possible.
sooner
Yeah.
rather than later. I guess before we do go, the last thing I want to ask in just in regards to this, just so I cover all my sort of thoughts and
Yep.
bases,
Mhm.
it's not going to fully heal in 2 weeks, though, right?
No way.
Yeah,
No.
that's
No
just
way.
so weird. It's just, I
No.
don't know, it's just so weird.
No. No way.
And it will probably never fully heal until the off season, because he's
No.
always running on it.
Well, whether it will heal or not ever, I'm not sure. But you know, your body is a very adaptable structure, and
Yeah.
it finds other ways to,
Yeah,
you know, it's going to put down scar tissue there. It may not heal perfectly
yeah.
back to the way it was. But yeah, there's no way that all that plantar fascia is going to
Just
bend and heal
in
in
2 weeks and then be ready to go.
No,
Yeah, so
no.
you're playing with a ruptured.
You're playing without it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've seen people still play with it. You know, Tom Mitchell is
Mm.
well, he went for the surgery and he's playing back into the VFL. Nick Dacos is playing with it. He hasn't ruptured it that we know of anyway, but and he's got that explosiveness back, but again, wasn't a rupture. You know, Charlie West is still kicking goals even though he's not at 100%. So you can play through it. And I guess these are the sort of injuries that, one, you probably don't hear much. Well, we are hearing a lot about it now, but one, you're not hearing much about it, because there was some injuries where I think we were talking about it might have been De Goey's, like the bone bruising and stuff.
Yeah.
You don't really hear about that during finals.
Yeah.
And they just go out and play.
Yeah.
You
100%.
get a couple of injections and you go out and play it. It's just all coming to the forefront now because the AFL's got this new sort of regulation, I guess, where you have to be so upfront with your medical injury list that comes out. You can't just say, oh, TBC. You have to say, okay, give us something that if it jolts back in. But yeah, so there you go. There's all your plantar fasciitis Maynard questions answered. I still can't wrap my head around it, but as long as he's okay for September, that's all. That's
it.
Really. And what are we in? We're June next week. It's 3 months, so
plenty of time.
Should be sweet. We should also mention that Damix Day is coming back from his MCL injury, which is really cool. Jordan De Goey is still TBC, and there hasn't been any update with him. They're still saying Achilles.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much that's pretty. Oh, actually, one thing, and this is just I didn't message it to you before.
That's all right.
TJ, he did his plantaris. What is that? Is that another word for plantar fasciitis?
No, totally different.
Okay, I feel like it's in the shin somewhere.
It's in the back of your knee.
Okay.
Some people actually don't have one.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So it's believed that it's a like a muscle we used for climbing.
Yeah.
Like to use your foot to grab onto things.
Yeah.
So yeah, some people don't have it. It's sort of like a calf muscle.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's sort of like behind the knee, a bit higher than the calf.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people don't have one, but you can tear it just like any other muscle.
Yeah.
Depending on the severity. Yeah, it could be like 2 weeks. Could
Yeah,
be 4 weeks.
he's just getting assessed. I know he didn't play last week because of it, and he's just getting assessed now. But I saw Plantaris on the injury report today. I go, what the hell is a Plantaris?
It's an interesting one.
Yeah. I've never seen that before in my life.
Yeah, it's hard to diagnose as well. Like most people would just diagnose it as a calf strain if you're not very diligent with your assessment. I've probably seen a couple. A friend of mine actually had his removed because it was causing other problems. But it's one that, you know, they're not like a surgeon's not too worried about having to cut out because some people don't
even have it. Anyway.
So,
interesting.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. It's a rare. I'd say it's more rare, and another one you don't hear about often. But yeah, it's just another muscle strain. It's muscle behind the knee, similar to a calf.
Well, there you go. We're learning something new every day with Etho, mate. Thank you so much.
No
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Done. See you guys soon.
See you then.